Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. My name is Cory.
And I'm Nick.
And in today's review, we are reviewing the game Living Forest Duel, which is a reiteration of Living Forest. This is a review copy sent to us by Pegasus Spiel North America, set to release in Gen Con this year in about a week. So we are reviewing the game here for you all to check out ahead of time. And as always, if you like the content you see here on the channel, please consider subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get started. All right, and first and foremost, I did want to reiterate here that this is a two-player only game. Like it says here on the box, it's a duel game, Living Forest Duel. So it's 1v1. Nick, did you want to kind of describe what's happening in the game of Living Forest Duel?
Sure. So as Cory already said, Living Forest Duel is a successor to the original game, Living Forest, and I've not played that game, so I can't speak to how exactly the duel version compares to Living Forest. However, if you've never played Living Forest, then you're just like us. This is basically a new game. And with that said, when playing Living Forest Duel, there's 4 different victory conditions that you and your opponent are trying to get to first. And you just need one of those victory conditions and you automatically win. And basically, this is a push your luck game because there's a deck of cards that you'll be drawing from on your turn. And there's only 2 things you ever are going to be able to do on your turn. You have 2 action tokens, and you can decide to use one of those action tokens on your turn to take an action, or you can draw a card from this shared deck. Now, eventually, you're going to get these symbols on cards you're drawing from this deck that will nullify one of your action tokens, and that's where the push your luck element comes into play. As you're drawing these cards, you're going to get more symbols, and as you get more symbols, that will make the various actions you can take with your action tokens more powerful. And the 4 victory conditions are filling out this matrix, 3x3 forest matrix that each player has in front of them. You can also be the first to get 8 of these fire tokens. Another victory objective is getting only your cards showing in what's called the recruitment row. And then finally, there is this character called Onibi, and there's a track that basically illustrates the progress of this Onibi token. And if you have it, it's basically kind of like a tug of war mini game where if you push this Onibi token over to your opponent's side enough, you can win the game that way. So a lot of ways to win the game, and on your turn, you're taking various actions that basically affect all these different victory conditions or help you either win via one of those victory conditions or protect yourself from losing from one of those victory conditions. And there's 4 actions essentially that you're doing. One is planting trees to go after the planting tree victory condition where you, again, like I said, you just need a 3x3 matrix of trees and you can win that way. Another action is called recruiting animals. Now, recruiting animals doesn't directly help you get a victory condition, but by recruiting animals, you'll have access to the other symbols as you play the game, and therefore you'll have the ability to have more powerful actions if you have more of these animals on your side. Then there's a water action, which prevents you from taking damage from this fire in the game, which is not good because then you're adding these cards that can negatively affect you into the shared draw pile. And then finally, there's the advancing Onibi action, which is an action that pushes that character along towards your opponent's side. And again, as I mentioned, that's one of the victory conditions is if you push that Onibi character enough to your opponent's side of this kind of tug of war section of the game, you can win that way. So a lot going on, but at the end of the day, you're just either flipping a card from the draw pile or taking one of the actions as I just described. So relatively simple when it comes to what you're actually doing on your turn.
Yeah, so like Nick said, just to reiterate, the symbols are straightforward in this game. There's the iconography is great. What you're doing is pretty straightforward. But yes, there is elements of push your luck, and there's also elements of tug of war in this game. A couple of the victory conditions have to do with the tug of war element. A couple of the victory conditions have to do with more of pushing your luck or trying to race to the finish to complete what you're doing before your opponent can do. So in like games like Seven Wonders Duel or the new Lord of the Rings version of that, it does have a few different ways to win the game, 4 to be exact in this game, which is really cool. That's my first pro with the game, is just how straightforward the win conditions are, but also having multiple avenues to victory. What is one of your first pros in the game, Nick?
One of the things I really enjoyed about this game is there's not a lot of thinking you have to do when it's your turn in terms of what you're going to do. As I said, you're either drawing a card from the shared draw pile or you're taking an action. And that streamlines gameplay because you're not given this huge menu of options of what you have to consider. And therefore, it helps pace of play go pretty quickly between you and your opponent. I really like how that worked in this game.
Yeah, and another pro for me, kind of going based off of that again, like Nick said in the intro to the video here, you are either flipping one card over, or you have the option of using an action token to do an action of one of the icons on that shared row of cards. And what I really like about that is it is kind of a tension builder, and it does create some tension between you and your opponent, because if you're flipping a card over, you're then giving them the opportunity to take an action before you can, and that plays into the effect of kind of the law of diminishing returns on if a player uses an action before you do, you have to wait essentially 2 additional cards before you can use that same action again to get an effect from it. But then also you're not building the icons or building up that action as powerful as maybe your opponent was just able to utilize. Or do you not flip over as many cards, have a little bit less of a strong action, but then you're able to take that action before your opponent can. So that dynamic between you and your opponent is really fun to play with. So really appreciated that about it.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of balancing the take that in this game, because clearly it's a duel game. It's very competitive. You are playing against one other player, and there are things and actions you can take that directly negatively impact your opponent, but generally there's a balance. So for example, as I mentioned, one victory condition is to have only your side, your cards available in this recruitment row, and to do that, you can decide to recruit the cards of your opponent and replace it with one of your cards. But when you're recruiting one of the cards of your opponent's, now that card goes to your opponent immediately and gets put into this shared draw pile. So they will then have access to draw it again in the future. So in essence, you're recruiting for them, but you're going after a victory condition for that helps you win the game. Yep. And I really appreciate that aspect in the game where it kind of keeps the game balanced then, because even if you're doing really well, you're also kind of helping your opponent to an extent. Yes. And I think that helps. I really appreciated that part of this game.
Yeah, and there's multiple elements in the game that has to kind of go off of what Nick just said. Even with the fire tokens, for example, if you are extinguishing the fires or moving the Onibi, is it Onibi, along the shared space there, you are also opening up more of an opportunity for more fires to then spread, which is then inherently affecting both players, depending on how well you're doing with the water resource on your side of the board, paired to the rest of the water symbols on the shared display pile. And if you can't extinguish enough fire, you are adding more fire or negative fire cards to the deck essentially for that too. So there's a lot of balancing act in this game. Yes, I am doing better and progressing toward this victory condition, but I'm also either helping out my opponent or hurting both my opponent and myself. And there's really that balancing act to the game. So that is definitely a pro for me, is just how trying to best balance the effects of everything going on. Also, another pro for me is that there is a little bit of combo building in this game as well. With the Onibi, moving that along the track, you're not only working toward a victory condition, but depending on what card it lands on, you get an additional free bonus action, which is really fun to pull off as well. Or like Nick said in the intro too, another thing, you're trying to build out a 3x3 grid of forest cards, planting those trees. You're not only doing that for the victory condition, you're also doing it for inherent effects that help bolster your actions in the future. But also, if you can connect the rivers in a particular way, you're getting free bonus actions with that too. So there's a lot of combo aspects to this game as well. Any other pros for you that you could think of yourself, or what some other players might enjoy with this game?
Yeah, definitely. If not obvious, just by looking at this game, it's very comes in a very compact box. So perfect for traveling. If you're going on a trip somewhere and you just want to pack a nice 2-player game, this will fit nicely.
It does take up some table space though, but
the table space, I was going to say maybe not something you can put on the plane, but definitely something that you can easily pack on a trip. So I appreciate that. And I like the artwork in this game. It's very family friendly. It looks nice and colorful. So I think the game, it's just in general has good production value, looks nice as well.
The rule book, getting through that was a little bit confusing with which card is what does this mean, what name is associated with that. So it was a little bit difficult to learn the game with the rules. So I guess that would be my first con with the game. But once we got started, it was very simple to understand what was going on.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Cory that the rule book itself maybe makes the game seem more complicated than it really is.
Yeah.
But yeah, and as we've already talked about, the pace of play for this game is actually pretty quick and definitely something that's nice. Something that bothers me a little bit about this game is the theme. I didn't really connect to the theme at all in this game. It's very abstract to me. I don't fully understand how one side being winter and one side being summer impacts the game mechanics at all, other than just the cards on the winter side.
Not really mechanically. In the rule book, they try to explain the flavor a little bit, but not mechanically. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and then, the different, when you're recruiting animals, why certain animals provide certain elements over others. It just seems all a little random. Again, this game's from the original Living Forest game. So maybe if you have background of that game and you come into knowing that game coming into this, things will click more with you. But that's also something that isn't abnormal for a smaller card game. That's just the reality of this type of game.
Yeah, and another slight con that I could see with the game, do I just keep pushing hard with the one action to try to race to the end game victory condition that I'm working on? Or is there really more depth to that do I pivot and change strategy mid-game? I didn't really find the depth in the decision-making on that side of it to be as interesting as it could be. But again, with more plays under our belt, maybe that could flesh out differently too.
Yeah, just to build off that, one decision point in the game is just when you're recruiting animals, and it kind of feels like you're recruiting what you can based on how many recruitment points you have. Not so much, I really want to go after this type of symbology or this type. And it's like, well, I have 5 recruitment points and this costs 5, so I'm going to get that. Or you're just trying to recruit your opponent's, animals and or creatures in the hopes that you can fill up that recruitment board with just your cards. But it didn't really feel like strategically I was thinking much about the recruitment part of the game. However, this is after just a limited amount of plays. So yeah, if after more plays, that aspect of the game may have, I might understand more like what I should be going for.
And in an effort to make this review as brief as possible, just to run through it real quickly here, let's start with our final thoughts. I guess we'll just start with me on it. I'm going to preface this with, I am not a huge 2-player only gamer. The 1v1 head-to-head stuff doesn't really appeal to me too much. But from what this game does and getting going and understanding the actions, the icons are very straightforward. It's simple to play. I like the 4 different victory conditions. I like the tug of war aspects and the push your luck in this game a lot. From what it does it very, very well. So I'm coming in at a 7.5 out of 10. I think that's a real high rating for me. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan typically of this style of game. I think this definitely pushes toward being one of my more likable 2-player only games that I have played. From what it does, it's very unique. Like Nick said, the theme doesn't really tie into it too much, but I understand the fact that you do need a summer and a winter player to have a little bit of asymmetry between what cards are being bought and what cards do what for which player. So that kind of plays into that, but it is very abstracted out. But it's definitely a game that I will come back to, and I do want to try with more people and give it more plays. And just my initial thought is a 7.5 for right now.
And I would be very, very close to Cory with this. I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. And I'm similar to Cory in that I'm not necessarily the biggest 1v1 type gamer. I'm more of a co-op type gamer. But that's the reason I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 is because I didn't feel this was such a combative type of game. Like, there's clearly interaction between both players, but you did feel like you had enough agency where your opponent couldn't completely ruin your turn or round. And I like that about this game. And also, again, as we've already talked about, it's relatively quick to set up and get to the table. So it's very, I would say, approachable.
Yeah. And with that, I did want to say, too, that after playing the dual version of it, I'm kind of interested in trying the regular Living Forest game now. That game actually plays 1 to 4 players. So I am curious to see the differences, and I want to play with more players. 3 or 4 players might be kind of fun. If it plays anything similar to this, I think it had some really neat, unique mechanisms. And if any of you have played either Living Forest or have a chance to play Living Forest Duel at Gen Con this year, leave comments below in the comment section on what you thought of the game. If you like one version of the game better than the other and that sort of thing. If we get a lot of comments saying that Living Forest is better than Duel from their experience, I would definitely like to seek that one out. So any final words from you before we go?
Well, yeah, as Corey said, this is coming out right before Gen Con, so this is obviously really exciting for us to be able to share a game ahead of its big release, and hope you also have a good time at Gen Con if you're going. So
We can't make it this year, so
yeah.
have a great time on behalf of us. And until next time, you all have a great day and have fun gaming.